More than 500,000 people dead, millions forced to flee their homes, entire cities reduced to rubble. But Syria's tragedy was never just a civil war. It became something much bigger. Behind the destruction stood some of the most powerful nations on earth, each pursuing their own interests. What started as local protests soon transformed into a deadly proxy war involving global and regional powers. In 2011, inspired by the Arab Spring, thousands of Syrians took to the streets demanding reforms. At first, many believed change could come peacefully, but the government's response would change the country's future forever. As violence escalated, protests quickly turned into armed resistance. Various opposition groups began taking up arms against the Syrian government. At the center of the conflict stood Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Battles spread across the country as different factions fought for control. Within months, Syria was fragmenting into multiple battlefronts. Ordinary civilians paid the highest price. Millions fled to neighboring countries in search of safety. An entire generation would grow up knowing only war. As the conflict intensified, foreign governments began taking interest. For many nations, Syria became a strategic opportunity. Regional powers saw the conflict through very different lenses. Each government hoped to shape the outcome in its favor. Syria was becoming a geopolitical chessboard, and soon, the world's most powerful players would enter the battlefield. By 2012, foreign intelligence agencies were closely watching developments inside. Reports suggested that the conflict could reshape the entire Middle East. Syria sits at the center of one of the world's most strategically important regions. For regional powers, the stakes were enormous. Iran viewed Syria as a critical ally. Maintaining influence in Syria became a strategic priority. Syria connected key regional networks important to Iran. Russia had its own reasons to support Damascus. Moscow's only Mediterranean naval foothold was located in Syria. Losing Syria could weaken Russia's strategic position. Turkey watched events unfold from directly across its southern border. Millions of refugees created enormous pressure on neighboring states. By the millions, civilians fled the violence. Saudi Arabia also became involved as regional rivalries intensified. Different countries backed different groups. Syria was no longer just a civil war. It had become a complex conflict involving many competing actors. Every year added new layers to the war. The conflict was increasingly shaped by decisions made far beyond Syria's borders. The proxy war was now fully underway. As Syria descended deeper into chaos, Washington faced a difficult question. Should America intervene or stay out of another Middle Eastern conflict? Intelligence reports warned that the conflict could destabilize the entire region. Different rebel groups controlled different parts of the country. Some groups received support from foreign governments, but a far more dangerous force was emerging. ISIS rapidly expanded across Syria and Iraq. Entire cities fell under their control. The world watched in shock. ISIS forced many nations to take action. In 2014, the United States launched airstrikes against ISIS positions. The objective was clear: stop ISIS before it expanded further. Gradually, ISIS began losing territory. A coalition of nations joined the fight. Military planners coordinated operations across the region. Drones became a major part of modern warfare. Special operations units carried out high-risk missions. Major battles such as Kobani became symbols of resistance. Strategic victories slowly changed the balance of power. Yet defeating ISIS would not end the conflict. Syria remained the center of a much larger geopolitical struggle. In 2015, the war entered a completely new phase. Moscow launched a direct military intervention in support of Assad. Russia established operations from its airbase near Latakia. Airstrikes targeted opposition-controlled territories across Syria. International observers debated the true objectives of the campaign. The battlefield became increasingly complicated. Different factions controlled different parts of the country. Aleppo became one of the most devastating battlefields of the entire war. Entire neighborhoods disappeared beneath rubble. By now, Syria was no longer just a Syrian conflict. It had become a battlefield for global influence. While global powers competed for influence, Kurdish forces emerged as another major actor in the conflict. Their growing influence reshaped the balance of power in northern Syria. Turkey viewed these developments as a direct security concern. Turkish operations added another layer of complexity to an already crowded battlefield. But beyond politics and military strategy, ordinary people suffered the most. For an entire generation, war became a way of life. International organizations struggled to provide relief. Years of fighting left entire cities unrecognizable. The Syrian war was never driven by a single cause. It became a collision of local grievances, regional rivalries, and global ambitions. So, who destroyed Syria? The answer depends on who you ask, but one thing is certain. Millions of Syrians paid the price for a war that grew far beyond their borders.